The math of democracy is flawed. Constitutions are unsigned illusions. But practically speaking, we live in a complex modern world. If we throw out the Constitution and the state flag, how do we build roads? How do we manage air traffic control? Do we just have anarchy? If we only have eternal spiritual principles, how do we handle a banking crisis?
It's the critical question, and it's where the sources move from tearing down the secular system to providing the exact mechanical blueprint for a functional natural state.
Okay, let's hear it.
They call this the establishment of the real caliphate. To eliminate structural shirk and still manage a modern society, the Constitution must be completely mathematically bifurcated. It has to be split into two entirely separated dimensions.
Okay, let's look at this binary structure. Part 1, the sources say, consists of immutable principles. This is the Quran and the Sunnah. These are the fixed, unamendable metaphysical constants, zero edits allowed. They represent the absolute truth of Deen-e-Fitrat, Deen-e-Islam. This is the hardware that says justice must be served, exploitation is forbidden, human life is sacred.
Exactly. But you can't run a city just by repeating justice must be served. You need mechanics.
Right, you need laws.
That is Part 2, adaptable statecraft, or what the texts call working policies. This is the fluid, day-to-day regulation of society. This is traffic laws, economic management, urban planning, import-export tariffs. These policies are entirely based on rational wisdom and acquired knowledge.
Because they have to evolve with time.
Right. A traffic law from 1920 won't work in 2026.
But what keeps Part 2 from just turning back into secularism?
Subordination.
Subordination.
The absolute key to the binary structure is that Part 2, the working policies, must remain strictly, structurally, and legally subordinate to Part 1, the immutable principles. The audit notes that Surah Al-Kahf 18.26 mandates that Allah does not share his command with anyone. Therefore, you cannot merge them into one document where they are treated equally. You cannot put mutable human working policies on the same legal footing as divine principles.
Because the moment you put them on the same level, you give Taqut the power to erase the divine principles in the name of a working policy.
Precisely. Separating them logically and mechanically strips away the artificial authority required to commit structural shirk. It dismantles the state flag idol because the ultimate authority is permanently anchored in the unchangeable fitrat, while human intellect is rightly relegated to the role of management and administration, not sovereign legislation.
The ultimate empirical proof.
The empirical proof.
They don't just want you to believe this theory. They offer a 360-degree litmus test that grounds all of this in observable, undeniable reality.
Right. If you are listening to this and you are still wondering, is this mechanical breakdown of secularism really true? Are flags really idols? Is democracy really a mathematical illusion?
The sources issue a universal challenge. Let's call it the Riba challenge.
The challenge is simple. Try to implement Riba, an interest-based economy, which we know violates the natural constant of efficiency and justice as the operational law of the land, without relying on the authority of a country-state flag god idol. I want you to really think about this. Try to pass a law that says it is perfectly legal for a bank to charge 25% interest and foreclose on a family's home, but do it without a constitution, without a parliament, and without claiming you are doing it for the nation.
Mechanically, the text argues it is an absolute structural impossibility, because the text of the Quran, the unchangeable constant, cannot be amended or rewritten by human hands. You cannot simply say interest is now lawful under a law. The absolute law forbids it.
So what do you have to do?
Therefore, to implement a law that violates the natural constant, you must, out of pure mechanical necessity, construct a highly specific bypass system. You must have the artificial framework, the state, the idol, the tagut, to validate and normalize the violation.
The inability to execute a false law independently of this artificial framework proves that the alternative divine framework is the absolute truth. You literally cannot commit the crime without wearing the mask.
I want to spend significant time on this because it is the intellectual peak of the entire deep dive.
The discussion here culminates in what the texts call the absolute fact of nature. The premise is this: Allah's laws cannot be replaced without the invention of a false god.
And they back this up using a specific verse, Surah Fusilat, verse 41.53, which says, "We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth."
Right.
The texts use this verse as an empirical laboratory proof, dividing it into two dimensions: horizons, which they translate as external mechanics, and selves, which they translate as internal logic. Let's break this down meticulously, starting with the external mechanics, the horizons.
The external proof uses a brilliant analogy regarding physics. Think about how a shadow works. A shadow cannot manifest in the physical world on its own. It is an absence of light. Therefore, a shadow absolutely requires a physical object to block the light source.
Wait, let me make sure I follow the mapping of this analogy.
Yeah.
The light is natural law, Deen-e-Fitrat, Deen-e-Islam.
Yes.
What is the shadow?
The shadow is the fake law, a law against nature, like the legalization of riba or the division of humanity through borders. Just as a shadow needs an object to exist, a fake law cannot manifest legally or structurally without an anchor blocking the truth. Passing fake laws against nature requires anchoring a physical country-state flag god idol.
Oh, I see.
You need the physical idol, the flag, the state apparatus to cast the legal shadow. Without the physical object blocking the light, the shadow vanishes instantly.
That makes perfect sense mechanically. You can't have the fake law without the fake idol to authorize it. Now, what about the internal logic, the selves? How does this manifest psychologically inside the human mind?
This connects directly back to the delegation paradox we spent so much time on earlier, because an individual inherently knows they have zero right to legislate against nature. They know they cannot change the speed of light or the moral reality of theft. They know they cannot delegate that right to a politician. 0 plus 0 equals 0.
Right.
So internally, psychologically, humans are forced to invent a fiction to cope with their rebellion.
It's cognitive dissonance on a species-wide level. We know we aren't gods. We know we don't have the authority to alter the fitrat. So we build a false god, the abstract state, and we pretend it has the sovereign authority, and then we pretend it gave us the authority through democracy.
Exactly. You have to invest fake sovereign authority into an inanimate state idol to bypass your own internal psychological knowledge that you lack the right to change the laws of the universe. The internal self requires the illusion just as much as the external horizon requires the shadow.
And this leads to the ultimate verification, the empirical proof that brings everything together. The documents state that this sequence, the country-state flag god idol, leading to the Takhut mouthpiece, leading to the fake law, is a rigid mechanical law of cause and effect.
It is as mechanical as a gear turning another gear.
So here is the explosive conclusion of the text, and I want to make sure I state this clearly. The sources argue that we can run a structural experiment.
A thought experiment, really.
Yeah. If you mechanically subtract the country-state flag god idol, which you achieve via that mathematical separation of the Constitution we talked about, splitting it into part 1 and part 2, isolating the divine law from the administrative law, the entire counterfeit legislative sequence instantly collapses.
It shatters. Remove the anchor and the shadow disappears. Remove the idol and the Takhut loses its voice. It can no longer claim divine jurisdiction. And if the Takhut loses its voice, the fake laws, the riba, the systemic exploitation, the predator elite's wish list lose their imaginary jurisdiction over human life.
And the proof?
Because it is physically, mathematically, and structurally impossible to pass a false law without first inventing a false god to authorize it, this inevitable collapse provides undeniable, empirical, observable proof.
Proof of what?
Proof that Allah exists and that the Quran is the absolute truth, or HAQ. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the natural order, Deen-e-Fitrat, Deen-e-Islam, is the only mathematically and structurally sound operating system for human reality. Anything else mathematically equals 0. Anything else requires a manufactured, idolatrous delusion to sustain itself.
That completely flicks the script on how we view modern society.
Yeah.
It's not that religion is a myth hiding in a scientific world. It's that the secular state is a myth hiding in a divine reality.
It demands a total, uncomfortable reevaluation of structural reality.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought experiment drawn from the deeper layers of these sources. We haven't mentioned this yet, but it's the absolute perfect way to cap off this architectural audit. They call it the universal retrieval test, or the burning of books.
I love this one.
Imagine that tomorrow, some catastrophic event occurs, and every single written text, every digital archive, every server, every legal code, every record on oath is burned to ashes. A total wipe. Everything is gone.
Complete erasure.
The sources argue that if this happened, only 3 realities would be universally retrievable from the canvas of existence because they are hard-coded into reality itself.
And what are they?
First, the Quran, because it's preserved perfectly, word for word, within the human memory of millions of people across the globe. Second, statecraft, because the natural law of unity, organization, and administrative logistics would inherently, naturally rebuild itself out of necessity. And third, science, because the physical forces of the universe, gravity, thermodynamics, mathematics, remain completely unchangeable.
But the secular constitution, the invisible borders, the country-state flag god idol.
They would vaporize permanently. They would be completely unretrievable because they were never real to begin with. They were nothing but a manufactured myth held together by collective imagination and predator elites.
It's a profound thought experiment. When the artificial structures burn away, only the Fitrat remains.
Think about that the next time you look at the skyline, or the borders on a map, or the structures governing our world. Look closely at the blueprints. Question the foundation. I want to thank you for joining us on this incredibly intense deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
Thank you for taking the time to explore this with us. Keep questioning and stay curious.